Hi friends! Alright, we are here today for chapter 5. It took me long enough. I apologize. I had to get storage in my phone. But here we are. So let's start with a really quick recap. Chapters 1 and 2, we remember learning about how to recognize our higher self, or our other self as Hill calls it, and then we also learn how to use this higher self to help us with the many temporary defeats that life throws at us. Chapter 3 is when the interview starts, and we find out that the devil is nothing more than the negative energy of everything in our world. Chapter 4, we learn about drifting, which is one trick used against us to prevent us from discovering our higher selves and becoming successful. And now, coming into chapter 5, we are going to learn about flattery, propaganda, money, and a few other tricks. So Hill starts out by admitting that he knows he's going to die well before he ever sees the devil defeated. However, he also tells us that his books will be deathless because they're going to go on to help millions of people like you and me escape the grasp of these tricks. So by discovering these truths, we are setting ourselves free. The truth is what fears the devil the most, because once we wake up, he starts to lose control over our minds and we start to think for ourselves. So remember from the previous chapters that fear is the number one thing used against us. Truth brings us the opposite of fear. It brings us a clear understanding that we have nothing to fear because fear is just false evidence appearing real. Fun fact from the book, Hill passed away in 1970, and this book remained unpublished up until 2011. So, do you realize how much the world has changed since then? Can you look back at it with me and see how far we've come? When I started the spiritual journey, one thing that I was told was the first Great Awakening took place in 2012. I no longer believe in coincidences, and I believe that everything happens for a reason, and I also believe that this book contributed to the movement that took place in 2012. Okay, there's a lot of repetition in this book, and it really annoys the devil. In fact, you might also find yourself very annoyed by it, but just know that it does serve a purpose, and my headband's falling out, so I'm just going to take it out. The purpose is so that we can see for ourselves the many different angles and tricks that are used against us. This way we can start to identify them in our own lives so that we can make the changes we need to escape these tricks. And another reason they are repeated is because sometimes we just don't understand it the first few times. So by having it reworded multiple times, it eventually clicks in our minds and we're having our aha moments together. So Hill then asks the question that we've all been wondering about, which is how is Hill able to force this interview with the devil into existence in the first place? In our last group discussion, I mentioned the ways that I felt he was able to, which is using his clairaudient and because he practiced getting in touch with his higher self. So he formed that channel, he opened the channel. So we now discover a few more reasons, and the devil tells Hill that it is because he discovered the secret approach to the kingdom in which the devil resides. Remember back to chapter 1 when the devil said that he resides in our minds. So Hill has discovered the secret approach to his mind, not the devil's mind, Hill's own mind. Hill has mastered his own mind by overcoming all of his fears, learning through those temporary defeats. Hill has a clear knowing that this interview is going to help many, so that's another reason why he wants to pursue it. And then Hill has completely taken control over his mind, so the devil no longer has any naysay in there. Hill is completely thinking independently on his own. So, another thing that we find out, and I think this comes up in the next chapter actually, so I'm just gonna hold my I'm behind, so I'm actually got my next chapter typed out ready to go, so I gotta slow down. So the devil then tries to flatter Hill, and of course Hill does not fall for it, which brings us to the next topic, which is flattery. Flattery has two of our most common weaknesses. The first one is being vanity, and the second one is being egotism. So flattery is used by both men and women to get what they want when the regular sex appeal doesn't work. Flattery is used to build a competitor's confidence only to bring them down later. And I found this part of the chapter really interesting because I used this technique for myself for the marketing company that I am in. Nobody taught me how to use it or told me about it. I just discovered one day that people responded better to flattery. So, and I didn't even really realize I was flattering them up until I read this chapter either. So what I used to do is I used to send out messages asking people to look at my website. And when I would just ask them to look at my website or create a free account, whatever it was I was doing, the responses were very minimal, if at all. So one day I decided to say like, hey beautiful, because most of my marketing is generated towards women. And I noticed that the messages were actually getting responses. So it's something I stumbled upon accidentally, and it never really ended in regular sales, but I definitely got to know who the person was on the other side, and because of that, I have formed some really great friendships with a lot of the people. Since reading this book, I do still use these words. It's normally my friends who are stuck with my terms of endearment now. And the other reason I use them is because sometimes I just feel guided to let a particular person know that, you know, you are beautiful. I know you're not feeling like it right now, but you really are. But I definitely don't use it like I used to, so that's really cool. Alright, so when it comes to flattery, women are most easily flattered by their vanity, you know, our looks, and men are most easily flattered by using their ego, so their manliness. For more information on the topic of flattery, I highly encourage you guys to read this chapter. There are so many golden nuggets within all of these chapters that I just don't discuss because I'm trying to stay on the main topic of what the chapter is about. So this brings us to our next topic, which is failure. Failure is It's something that breaks down our morals, it destroys our self-confidence, it takes away our enthusiasm, dulls our imaginations, and it can, if we allow it, remove our definite purpose of life. A great majority of people start to drift when they are met with failure. Roughly only 1 of 10,000 people will keep on trying after they meet failure 2 or more times. The rest of those 10,000 people fall into the habit of drifting and they simply just give up on their life and their dreams. Failure is used as an excuse for so many people. I myself, I know I'm guilty of this, but we always say, I can't move forward because this is happening, or I can't do this because this person fell through. We are using it as an excuse. Highly encourage everyone to step out of that energy. It's difficult at times to get yourself out of that situation, but it is possible because I've been there. I've got multiple friends who do it, so trust me, you can do it if we can do it. And so, as this interview tells us several times, those who don't give up are guaranteed to eventually meet success. Being able to convert failure into stepping stones is a habit of the non-drifter. And this reminds me of that one song, I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down. I love that song. Great song. Always used to listen to it when life was beating me up, so highly encourage you to listen to that song if you need a little pick-me-up. Alright, and we go further into it by saying that the seed of success will not germinate or grow within a drifter's mind. It will spring to life only when it is in the hands of someone who recognizes that failure is only a temporary defeat. Failure is only a virtue for those who don't accept defeat and continue to push forward. Drifters will just simply give up. This is why the devil uses failure as a trap for the tens of thousands of people worldwide trying to chase their dreams. 1 of 10,000 people will succeed. That to me is worth considering, because of all of us watching this video together, are we going to be the 1 of 10,000, or is one of us going to be the 1 of 10,000? How far are we willing to push ourselves? So after failure seems to take us over, we are then deceived even more with propaganda. First, we must know what propaganda is. Propaganda is any plan, device, or method by which people can be influenced without actually realizing that they are being influenced. Propaganda is found everywhere in our modern days. It's in our schools, it's in our movies, it's in our radios, it's in our billboards, newspapers, businesses, people's opinions, etc. Propaganda is everywhere, right? So, we then find out that the devil's propagandists cover the world so thoroughly that he can start epidemics of disease, start wars, and throw businesses into a panic. I must have read this part of this chapter a dozen times. Each time I said, wow, taking a look at our current situation around the world with this virus and the chaos that's happening around us. So we are also told that it is used so well that we are unaware of it, and the things that we do see seem harmless, right? So like we see the McDonald's and the other restaurant signs, we see the places for the hotels, the adult stores for the adults, the family fun centers, the Disneyland. Like, you've seen everything on a billboard, you've heard it all on the radio, you've seen it all on the TV, and I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot of things come out of other people's mouth. This is all a form of propaganda. It doesn't have to be just political. So I really suggest that you guys read page 108, specifically the second question that's asked on that page. I'm not going to talk about it, but I really suggest you guys read it. Taking propaganda a step further, the devil admits that this is the trick he used on us when he is planting those negative thoughts into our minds. Those thoughts really are not our own. They are his, and they are being placed there in our minds by him. Once we take on the habit of drifting, the devil then uses more tricks on us, and we have now become a propagandist for him. More so, these people are the higher ranked people, the people who have a lot of followers and are influencers, so to say. So to understand how we can become a propagandist, let's take a look at an example within the chapter found on page 112. Hill asks the devil what happens when he enters the mind of a non-drifter, but this person still belongs in the 98% of people who can become a drifter. The devil responds immediately and says that he goes to work within the mind to occupy as much space as he can. He does so by finding out what their biggest weakness is of that particular person. So for example, if this person's weakness is money, the devil begins to dangle the money in front of them. The devil then intensifies the lust for this money and cons the person into going after it. When the person gets near the money, it is then dangled away, and it reminds me of that fishing commercial with the old man and the young lady, and the old man's like, oh, you gotta be quicker than that. So he'll then ask the devil what happens if this said person obtains the money. The devil, or this person, has then avoided the trap of fear of poverty that the devil likes to play on us. However, the devil goes on to tell us that he then makes this person overindulge in all of the things that they can buy with their money. So food is normally the first item used against us because it slows down our thinking capacity, endangers our hearts, and it can begin a person on the road to drifting. However, sometimes this person isn't into the food side of things, so in this case, then the devil says he ensnares these people with their lust for sex. any overindulgence in sex can lead to drifting. So, in this story, we went from thirsting for money and avoiding fear of poverty mindset. We got invited to indulge in food that is toxic to our bodies, but we avoided that. And then we are induced to overindulge in sex so that we forget everything else we're on a mission to do. Pretty clever, don't you guys think? It's all just like one storyline that I'm pretty sure we've all been in at enough times. So now that we've looked and understand that scenario a little bit more, let's move on to discuss how money is either a blessing or a curse. What do you guys think? Do you think it's a blessing or do you think it's a curse? The answer is, for me, it can be both. And from what I read in this book, it can be both. Money is everything in the hands of the beholder. So in the first scenario that we take a look at, the person who acquired the money quickly, people who acquire money quickly experience money more as a curse. And the reason for this is because they simply didn't have to put in the hard work that came with actually acquiring the money, so therefore they don't have the appreciation or the gratitude for it. They are also more apt to fall into the tricks that the devil likes to play on us, which is sex, gambling, food, liquor, feeding our ego is another popular one. There's so many tricks. The second scenario tells us about people who do acquire the money slowly. They understand the hard work that it came with getting the money, so they are more responsible with it. This is where the luring of the desires comes into play, as we talked about in the story discussed on page 112. The last scenario is completely about the non-drifter. They are human, so of course, we all are interested in bribes and, things that we like. However, the non-drifter is more like a fish that steals the bait and leaves the hook behind. The non-drifter takes what they want when they want it. Another example between the drifter and the non-drifter is that the drifter will go to a bank, take out a loan, and pay a decent amount of interest on it, whereas the drifter will go to a pawn shop, pawn all their items off, pay a significant amount of interest if they even decide to get them back. Moral of the stories is that money and wisdom make a great team. A great way to sum up the story on page 112 is this. We are bribed through our natural desires. We are then lured to become a drifter. If that lure does not work, fear is then used to induce us into drifting. And it comes as no surprise that the devil would rather have the young serve as his propagandist because they are easier to bribe and manipulate. So, how do we get out of this drifting habit? Page 16 has 10 examples or steps for us to think about, and we're going to go over them. So, number 1, do our own thinking on every single occasion. Number 2, decide what we want from life and make a definite plan or a definite way to achieve it, baby steps. 3, analyze the moments of temporary defeat and remember that it will bring with it a seed of equal greatness. 4, be willing to render service that is equal to the material objects that you want and be willing to render the service first. Recognize that we are connected to infinite intelligence and can have access to it for ourselves. Budget our time so that we are never wasting it. Number 7, realize that fear is only a state of mind that we have complete control over by replacing fear with faith. Number 8, when praying, do not be in begging mode. Know that it is already ours. Number 9, understand that life is like a chess game and you're either playing the game or it's going to play you. And number 10, our dominating thoughts will attract their physical counterparts. To sum up this list, we must be definite in everything we do, never leave anything unfinished, and form the habit of making definite decisions at all times. So, what if we accidentally fall into this habit of drifting? How do we get out? Number 1, with willpower and time. Number 2, using the positive laws of nature to help us. Gratitude, like attracts like. Number 3, this is finally a part in the chapter, or in this book, that I have to disagree with. The devil says that the habit of drifting can eventually get to a point where it cannot be broken. The first step, and this is where I have to completely disagree, I think that any pattern can be broken. The first step is to realize the pattern that you're stuck in and then make just one tiny change towards breaking the old pattern and stepping into the new one. So this wraps up our Chapter 5 group discussion. So until next time, I am sending you all lots of love, lots of light, and many, many blessings. Namaste, my friends.